It's a bad morning of trade, so we thought we'd organize some bullish talk for you just to lift the sentiment a little bit. And Jayakumar of Prime Securities has joined in. Jakes, interesting morning to get you in.
Well, to say the least.
But do you think 5200 still holds out? I mean, last couple of times, and that was your call a month back, but do you think it's under threat this time?
I don't think so. I mean, it's always under threat, I mean, put it differently. Will it hold out is the issue, and I think we should hold out for 2 or 3 reasons. I think every time we see this kind of fall, one of the things that's happening is that commodities are cooling off pretty appreciably. And I, for one, believe that we have seen the RBI probably going, a little too far down the curve as far as inflation control is concerned. So my sort of reading is that if this is what the world is getting into, and most of this is new territory for us, the US potentially failing, debt ceiling, countries collapsing, these are kind of new paradigms in that sense. So it's a foolish man who will say that nothing has changed. But the way I see this is that as long as here we seem to be actually having a problem if the Reserve Bank of India governor is to be taken completely, word for word. He says we just don't see any signs of growth abating, and that's why. So he's the only person who's saying this. I mean, corporate India seems to be crying out aloud, something quite different. Number two, he sees inflation, and I think inflation is moderating. We're seeing that on week. Maybe he's being a little extra cautious, but there is room, I suspect, post September, when either new people take charge or there is a continuity, that we probably will have definite calls for easing, if not actual easing. I think people will be worried stiff about inflation at that stage. Already all brokerages are downgrading growth targets. So at one level there is an attempt to cool off, and we seem to be sort of in the throes of not being able to cool ourselves off. Everyone's kind of factoring that in now. Numbers for the first quarter have not been great. Q2 numbers seem to be again not going to be great for most of the industry-wide things. But a very interesting phenomenon which I've seen is, we keep talking about the index PE at 14 or thereabouts, but interestingly I don't think there are more than 2 or 3 stocks in the index which actually trade at a 14 PE. You either have the oil companies trading at the 4s and 5s and 8s, or you have the 20 plus, 22 plus, which is the MNC. So it's a very interesting thing. So what are you at the end of the day buying when you're buying the Nifty or looking at the Nifty is you're looking at a sort of a mathematical average of discrete entities which are trading completely differently. So I think the truth lies in the fact that below 5400 we've always seen somehow that magically correlating with oil coming off to these sub 94, 93 levels. And if the US is indeed in a crisis as the indications are, then oil should come off even more sharply. To my mind, that may be the ultimate sort of test. I think the worst case scenario, if you will, before we talk about anything bullish, is the worst case scenario is if oil magically kind of shoots up in this kind of a global scenario because of speculation or whatever, and we have these pressures and interest rates, then I think you have a different set of paradigms to contend with. But otherwise, if oil cools off, I do believe that in the 53-5400 range always we've had foreign money walking in, and long only people who've been on the sidelines walking in, and especially in the context of international markets, I think this may be a lot more attractive with a lot more things priced in. So that's my theory. So I still think 5200 holds.
Are upsides getting postponed longer? I mean,
that's absolutely correct. In fact, I was about to say that there was a last bit which, actually speaking, we don't need to get overly excited. At 5700, the market's excited. There's a breakout on the cards, and something or the other dampens it. But at the same time, the calls for 5200 breaking happen. So, I don't want to sound like 50 other people I have on the channel which says there's a range and we may differ of 200 points on the range. So, but I still think that taking the upside out is getting prolonged a little more. And it's principally because we don't know which Nifty component will actually move. Will the 25 plus non-dilutive MNC be more in favor because it's also consumption, because it's also looking at buybacks, because it's also looking at increasing its stake, and therefore an investor darling? Or will we continue to mercilessly hammer the infra space out of whack? If the meeting of a few days ago of the finance minister with industry is anything to go by, I am fairly sure that if not bold measures, but definitely some policy announcements which talk about implementation should come through. And there's also whispers we hear about finally before the trial begins, maybe bail for the 2G case, etc. These are all some of the things that may these things are sort of fallen by the wayside. Now there are new scams to contend with for the market, if you will. But essentially, I think if some of these kind of the dust settles down, because we are in the middle of a massive catharsis, and I think that can only be great from a long-term transparency perspective in India. I mean, nobody contended that literally every name in the market, if you will come under threat in terms of being caught for or being alleged to have committed misdemeanors.
Sure.
So from that perspective, I think there is a catharsis on one hand, there's a transparency. I think money will come through because basic paradigm has not shifted, the growth paradigm has not changed.
Jake's morning. I guess the frustrating question of this year is what is the market holding out at 5200 for? I mean, is it a time-wise correction that we're going through, or is it just that selling gets exhausted, as you pointed out, at 5200, so then the market sort of stops there and then makes its 100-200 point move up, and we all think it's headed up again?
Well, I've not seen even massive selling at these levels. At 5400 we are seeing futures actions, as a lot of the futures positions are coming off, and as people build short positions with the Nifty, I'm not seeing cash selling. I mean, the figures are not indicating that. So this is at 5400 by mind you, or 5450 as of a few days ago. So we are not seeing this kind of massive sell-off even here. So it's not a question of what people are holding out for. I think at the end of the day, investors too are realizing that it's becoming more and more difficult, and you're not going to be able to take big trading calls in the market and make money. So you've got to just hold on to your convictions and hope that over a period of time, good strong stocks hold out in bad markets, and in a good market they will outperform on the way up. I think that's the thesis you've got to go back to old things. So it's going to be a kind of a boring existence. It's in a sense like as the poet would say, the solitary reaper. I think it was Wordsworth who said it. So we are solitary reapers at this point in time. Nobody really wants to look at the markets in that sense. I think lack of participation is there, and lack of participation both on the sell side and on the buy side. I mean, it's just very, very thin action, and in a sense moves are getting exaggerated because everybody at the drop of a hat is trading the Nifty, if you will. So I think it's a case of riding this out, and really one of the two have to give. I think either commodities have to come off very, very sharply, or there should be a time-wise sort of move, which when you start looking in 3-4 months at maybe FY13, and then say the markets are definitely not trading that expensive. And ultimately, I also believe that the biggest action right now is promoters buying their own shares back. Buybacks will get announced. I think that's going to be the ultimate bottom for the market. I think what we are forgetting is the number of these MNCs that are looking at increasing their stakes here, delisting announcements. That, to my mind, is far more material, and that's going to gather storm. Even these infra companies, I think a number of companies we are seeing, I forget which it was, maybe it was Lanco or one of these, where the promoters for the last 1.5 months have been buying through creeping acquisition. So clearly at some point in time value is there. It's not there in the short run, and definitely not for the impatient investor.